Look at what I have here. This is an engine that I just purchased and just arrived just today. This is an engine that I have wanted for many years. Haven't really been able to find. Then I happened to see this one on eBay. Jumped all over it. It's a Saito FA-120S with the dual plug. That's what this stands for. So this is, well, and it also came with this piece of paper that says airplane engine on it. So unfortunately I bought this from an eBay vendor who didn't know much about RC engines or airplanes at all, based on what I saw of his other things being sold on his site. It's more like a pawn shop, it looked like, but anyway. So this engine supposedly is new and not run. Now this person says he smelled it. He doesn't see any evidence of any carbon buildup on the muffler, so it kind of made it sound like he may know a little bit about something, but that's what I'm going to prove here. I'm opening this box basically for the first time. I don't even know what's inside of it yet, so I saved all of that for this video. Okay, so we've got a bunch of bubble wrap here. And here's a muffler, which this muffler does look new and unrun. I'm not sure if this is a style muffler that came with this engine or not. I really don't think it is. So, because this is an old engine. This engine, at least by the boxed vintage, was released in the mid to early 80s. And I know they didn't have mufflers like this on these engines then. So this is not original to the engine, which is quite unfortunate. The muffler was not shown in the pictures online. So here's the engine itself. So yeah, he was right. There's no evidence that this muffler has ever been run. It's because it's not original to this engine. Let's see, obviously it didn't come with any tools or anything like that. However, this engine has been run. I can tell that right now by looking at the exhaust port. I can smell that it's been run. There's a pushrod connector here on this throttle. And the throttle arm was bent. But I mean, I can tell right away by looking inside there that this engine has been run. So I will be contacting, and the thing is locked up totally. It doesn't even turn over at all. So I will be contacting the vendor and letting him know that this is not a new and unrun engine, and seeing what can be done about that to remedy the situation. I will be taking this down to some degree to inspect the internal components, but right now I'm going to send an email to this vendor and tell him that he sold me an engine that wasn't new as advertised. Okay, I'm going to continue to take a look inside this engine and try to determine how much usage it's got. I mean, externally on the outside it doesn't look too bad, but I mean the engine is completely locked up. It won't even turn over. So I just sent a pretty scathing email to the vendor that I bought this from, and I'm awaiting their response. I really want to keep this engine, but I want a substantial amount of the money I paid for this engine back, because it is not as advertised in the least. It didn't even come with any of the tools or accessories. This engine was sold as new and unrun. Not really sure what looking at this stuff is going to do for me. I really just need to get the carb off here. Seeing as this is the first time I've ever had a Saito FA-120, this also makes the first time I've ever disassembled one, so this carb is definitely a unique setup with all these bolts and stuff, or screws on it. What's next here? I really just want to get to the back plate, look inside there, and hopefully that'll tell me some things I need to know about the condition of this engine. Now, I don't know what the hell this stuff is. I don't know if this is original to the engine or not. Unfortunately, I really am pretty ignorant about this particular engine. It's hard to find any information on the dual plug, so I'm hoping that the things I'm seeing here are stock and supposed to be like that. Doesn't look like it's got a ton of runtime on it because there's not a whole lot of buildup on that exhaust valve, but okay. Here we go. Look inside here. Dry. Those bearings look really bad. Really bad. So unfortunately, it's probably going to need a bearing replacement at minimum. I'm not sure what all the... This is going to have to be a complete teardown now, unfortunately, and I'm kind of hesitant to go tearing this thing down now until I find out what the seller is going to do about this. If I end up having to send it back, then I don't want to tear it down and work on it any more than this, but right now I can say I'm quite disappointed. I just have to be patient now and wait for the seller to respond and see. That's going to really dictate my next course of action here on this engine. I really want to keep this engine. I really want this to run. I want to get it running, but right now my hands are kind of tied. Okay, so I have heard from the person I bought this engine from on eBay, and they did grant my request of a 50% refund for the price I paid for this engine. So with that, I have the green light to continue moving on, working on this engine. Now, as I said in my last video, it was a few days ago, this thing is completely locked up. It's pretty dry in there. So I've got it in the same condition, disassembly wise, as I had in the last segment. But I'm going to do something different this time. Obviously, I'm going to need to heat this thing up to get things freed up and moving. But instead of using my expensive 3-in-1 oil and the Marvel Air Tool oil, I'm going to fill this thing up with some of this stuff because, as you can see, I've got a lot of it. This bottle is like, I don't know, 10 years old, and I don't use it as much as I used to anymore. But since I really kind of need a lot of oil, I'm going to just put a whole bunch of oil in this engine and just kind of let it kind of meander through there. Now I'll probably end up pouring most of it out when I go to heat it up, but I do just want to kind of load this area up so all of these parts that this can touch at least have a bit of oil coating them. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let this kind of sit like this for a little bit until I start to see oil flowing out. Hopefully I'll see it flowing out the front bearing. I don't know if I will or not without it being able to turn, but then I'm going to go use some heat, apply some heat to this engine to see if I can't start to get it to move over before I start tearing it down any further. Okay, well, I let that oil soak in there for a few minutes and heated it up quite a bit. This is really kind of rather warm right now. That didn't result in this magically being able to be turned over, so I'm just going to go ahead while it's still warm and start disassembling these things. So I guess I should get my parts bin here for this engine. Start deciding what parts to soak and what parts to just leave as they are. Now you're noticing how easy these little these come out. I actually did kind of heat them up before the first time when I had this thing open and made sure that I could at least get them to move. That was part of what I wanted to get accomplished in that. So I think, looks like we've got yet another screw head here. Let's grab these push rods. Okay, those are a little bit different looking push rods than I've seen before. It's kind of funny, these are actually more like the push rods for that 40 open rocker engine I got, where it was there. Looks like they've got a chrome or some kind of sleeve over a steel machined push rod. That's interesting. Be very careful to make sure that these fasteners, the heads don't strip out on them. Make sure that side. Okay, like I said, this is the first Saito 120 I've ever owned, so that's the first time I've ever had to do this type of thing. Well, these valves feel pretty sticky, so I'll probably end up going to have to take those out also. Breaking these things free is the kicker. I'll make sure I get as much engagement there as possible, and that I can actually get these things broken free. Okay, now let's see if we can get this head to want to come off. Might actually have to put this in my workmate, kind of break that mechanical bond free or heat it up a little bit more anyway.